Hi y'all. So it's 12:45. If we're both here and we're ready, I'm ready whenever the app would like to start.
Hey, thank you so much. I just have two really quick questions for you, Judge, and then I am good to go. Um, so first, I guess I'll turn my camera on. First, how do we feel about speed? And also, how does my opponent, like, is there any accessibility issues or anything like that for speed?
So for me personally, I can follow the dock pretty well. I still appreciate slowing down for tags and stuff like that. Once we're off, reading cards later in the round, if you're going to be doing a lot of cross application, if you could do like the tags instead of the author, right? Because if you're just telling me like Olson 19, I might not remember exactly what that is in the moment. So just make sure you're clear on the cross application of cards. Also, if either competitor feels that they are being like spread out, like please say something. And if the competitor says something, make sure you adjust. And if for some reason I feel like I'm getting spread out, I'll let you know.
Okay, awesome. My second question was, how do you feel about performance and like performance when I sees?
I don't have a problem with them. I mean, I'll vote on the flow as best as I can. There's nothing that I'm gonna like automatically reject because I don't like. Like if you do a performance and the performance wins, like I'll vote on it. I don't think I have a bias against it.
Okay, we love to see it. Um, I dropped in the chat the speech drop, and I feel so like validated that we got the live stream. I'm like, oh, love it. Anyways, I'm about to upload the one I see, and then if I can just get a thumbs up or a sign of life whenever everyone is ready, or verbal confirmation if that's easier.
It's opening for me, so I'll let you know when I have it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Good.
We can't open it because. Okay, cool. I have it.
Awesome sauce. All right, and then before I begin, I do want to offer a brief trigger warning and constant warning to everyone in the room and to everyone watching. The 1AC does include mentions of queerphobia, transphobia, and trans violence. So if that's something that you're sensitive to, take whatever precautions necessary. All right, that being said, we have 6 minutes for the 1AC, starting now. We are the violent anti-ethics and monstrosity, bask in the self-imposed exclusion for being the bodily destruction of the trans person which disrupts the normative human life. Reject this. The monstrosity of the transgender is a disruptive force. That's Striker 94. I'm transsexual and therefore I'm much a worthy creature, much on a natural need to be killing by the transgender, so by embracing it, stopping them, even piling one on top of the normal way, dispel their ability to harm us, you affront you, human take a being called a creature, resist from the fact the term poses your status of Lord's creation, beings elevated of a mere material existence, as in the case of being called a creature, which suggests the lack of loss of superior personality. If I know shame, however, knowledge, and egalitarian relationship with my non-material human being, everything emerges from the same matrix of possibilities you are constructed to me. The same monarchic womb is birth as both. I call upon you to investigate your nature as I am compelled to confront my own am. A refiguration of gender is necessary before any productive engagement with the law is possible. Violence against trans and queer people is the driving source of the law. This frames the F as an a priori issue to any possible governmental action on immigration reform. That's Stanley 11. Near life themes of figuration and feeling not assistance to cover for the question of life might be post struggling with the phenomenology of black life and a colonization opens up critical ground for understanding a kind of near life that is made through violence to exist non-existence. Violence is bound to the question of recognition, which is also the impossibility of subjectivity, the absence of relationship between violence, structural violence, and instances of personal attacks, evidence why the traumatic afterlife left in their wake. The self-other apparatus is dismantled, that seem to colonize as an object in the midst of other objects. The embodies a feeling non-existence, a space of near non-existence, near life, forged in the territory of inescapable violence, allows us to understand that murders occurs against the logical aberration, the structure of anti-war violence is irreducible antagonism, crystallizes the ontological discursive material inscriptions and render specific bodies in specific times and places, and nothing the figuration near life should not be understood as the anti-human, but it's that which emerges in place of question of humanity. This mindless and ambition phantasmatically understood as the innocence of power often articulated as equality leads us back towards right discourse to further extend momentarily the badge of personhood. And the immigration system in the status quo has been, and will forever be against and exclusive of trans people. The system is rigged so that the state and the people can overlook the murders of trans and queer people by promising them a better life. And furthermore, the state and any resolution that uplifts it must be rejected because our foundational assumptions mean that there will never be change. That's Pringle 18. Hernandez Rodriguez was a trans woman who died at the age of 33 in an ICE detention facility. Was traveling with a caravan of migrants and was trying to reach the U.S. where she intended to apply for asylum. The autopsy reports that Hernandez had deep bruises on her body and signs of blunt force trauma. Forensic pathologists conducted the autopsy on Hernandez after she died. There was clear evidence of physical abuse, deep bruising, and indicative of blows or kicks and possible strikes with the blunt. Judge Sperry's autopsy found that she likely died from severe complications of dehydration. The staff of the detention center had neglected Hernandez, failing to treat her for dehydration. We don't want you here, you fucking faggot. But trans people in my neighborhood are killed and chopped into pieces and then dumped inside potato bags. Thus, I advocate an effective trans rage. A politics of refusal through exclusion can provide to overcome the cultural stigma around non-normative subject. This monstrous fury allows an identity free of gender. Vote AFT, reject the anti-trans politics uplifted in the status quo, and abandon belief in its ideology. It's a Striker 94. A form of destruction states particularly appropriate this moment because the effect is I seek to examine critical what term trans rage emerges from the intercity discourse or practice as a rage is self-generated by subject situation that feel government the undesirable relationship between language and materiality. The effect of rage is I seek to define as located the margin of subjectivity and the limit of signification originates in the recognition of the fact that the outsideness of materiality perpetually violates the foreclosure of subjective space when it's a symbolic order formation of its bodily ego. This primary rage becomes specifically trans rage whenever the inability to foreclose the subject or pursue fratricide gender norms of gender dichotomy. Trans rage furnishes as a means for disidentification of compulsory side positions that makes the transition from one gender subject position to another possible by using the impossibility of complete subjective foreclosure to organize an outside force and an inside drives and vice versa through the operation of ways the sigma itself becomes a source of transformative power and defy that law and refusal to abide with the original to create by gender, though I can escape from its power. I can move through its meaning, perhaps if I move furiously enough, I can affirm it by passing to leave a trace of my rage. And I want to take a moment to offer a personal analysis on rage and what it looks like. So rage itself is inherently a redirection of violence to the system of which perpetuates it. So this contextualized to the 1AC and this round means I am injecting personally the queerness and transness and everything that the system functions off of killing into the system itself. And by doing so, effectually sweeping the legs that the system relies upon to open up the discussion on material alternatives that Striker herself highlights. But let's move on. And being queer translates to death and societal exile. Society is normal, what queer is abnormal. Queer life becomes queer death because it is always against society. The alt does not fit in with the resolution's kind of violent inclusion. That is Nardini 09. We've always been the other, the alien, the criminal stories, the queers, the stars, the lazy. It's always been the narrative, the sexual deviant, the psychopath, the treat of the freak, the force of the concentration camps, the sex slavery, the prison, the normal straight. The American family has always constructed itself in opposition to queer. Straight is not queer. The discourses of heterosexuality, whiteness, and capitalism reproduce themselves into a model of power for the rest of us. There is death, the life of a queer, one of exile that involved the totality in this world, constructed and marginalized and excluded by my birth and taste from social order. I was aware of its diversity, and nothing in the world was irrelevant. This order, fear and fear, whose details were all interrelated, had a meaning of my exile. And debate is a paradigmatic institution in which our performance engages in the practice of social change. The judge's affirmation actualizes the new politics of the 1AC. That's Chambers Lesson 13. Performance of presence means to interrupt the conditions of reproduction, refine and active ways of the present of each paradigmatic institution of the process of reimagining and acting social change. So automatic experience require a decision on the part of the spectator to demand the spectator make a decision at the very least of whether or not they like the performance as such, cut the card as such. And let's make cis people uncomfortable. I have sat round after round this year hearing cishet white men stand in front of their computer and speak on immigration. They speak about immigration and AI and DACA and visas, ignoring trans bodies piling up while they read the story and importance of STEM workers. I have read story after story of trans siblings being murdered and silenced and forgotten while they read impact cards about the economy. I read the story of Vicky Gutierrez burned at the stake after being denied immigration into the United States while they read link evidence about the housing industry. I read the story of Dana Martin, a Black transgender woman shot and left in a roadside ditch. I have entered each round and I've only gotten more and more angry. While I spoke on these issues, they have laughed in the back of the room, but I doubt this round is the same ain't way. Nobody is flowing these poetics and my anger. I am angry. I am upset. I am enraged. I refuse to stand in another round and let the trauma that trans people experience be silenced and forgotten. I refuse to stand in another round barking arguments how I've been trained to. I refuse to stand in another round and uplift a transphobic resolution and a transphobic debate space. I refuse to abide by the rules of a rigged game. I stand in this round embodying rage. I stand in this room a microphone to those whose voices have been silenced and lost. I stand in this round enraged. CX.
Is my opponent ready for cross-examination?
All good.
Is the judge ready?
Yep.
All right. We shall begin with 3 minutes on the clock, starting now. So what exactly is your plan really doing, for example? Is it just reforming the immigration system to be more inclusive to trans individuals, or is it like a complete overhaul of the system, like retraining and everything?
Yeah, so this is going to be in context of the second Striker 94 evidence, which is the alt of trans rage. excuse me, which is inherently this idea that the system itself, the immigration system, the United States, the debate space, whatever system has that oppression and has those oppressed and those people who are oppressed engage in, ultimately relies upon that oppression and that violence done onto them. So rage is a redirection of that violence, right? It is inherently a violent act. So what happens is we take all of these things. We take the labeling of monster. We take being Frankenstein's monster. We take being unnatural and unholy, and all these things, and accept that and turn that back towards them, right? Which inherently, again, like I said in my analysis, sweeps the leg. I'd be happy to talk more about like the solvency and how it functions if that's what you're more curious about. But that's kind of like the general analysis and understanding of rage.
I'm trying to figure out how this exactly is a pure link to immigration reform. If you can make that a little bit clearer.
Yeah. So in context of immigration, this is going to be the biggest thing is going to bring the Pringle 18 evidence and the Stanley 11 evidence, right? And I'm going to explain it kind of backwards since they're flipped in the case. So
could you give the tag for those cards?
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. So Pringle 18 is the immigration system and the status quo. And then Stanley 11 is going to be the refiguration of genders necessary before any productive engagement. So the immigration system card talks about specifically the story of Roxana Hernandez Rodriguez, who went through the correct channels, right? Who did everything that she was supposed to, applied for asylum, did everything right, showed up right, and still died at the hand of the immigration system itself. Granted, she died in ICE custody, but specifically it was the immigration system that failed her because she was never supposed to be included in that, right? And Stanley 11, which is again a refiguration of genders necessary, categorizes any possible political change or policy implementation cannot be done until we have the critical conversations within the debate space and within ourselves to create that new framing of gender and re-understand how gender functions and how gender affects our society, right? Like how we think about everything, because it is everything. So yeah, it's kind of again a complete denial of that system of the gratification of killing and harming trans people and queer people.
Okay. No further questions. I have 4 minutes of prep on the clock. I will begin now. Stop time. I have 43 seconds on my clock. I am saving and uploading the document now. Okay. The order is going to be T and then analytics on their case. There is no DA or anything else like that. Can everyone see the document?
Just 1 second, please. I'm so sorry. Okay, I am good.
The violation did not copy over. I'm noticing that now. 1 second. Let me fix that. Restarting prep time. All right. Well, that's time, and I just got the violation back in. I apologize for that error. I'm taking the document down and reposting it. Can everyone view the updated document? Test 1, 2. Can people hear or see me?
I don't know about others. I can hear you, but I can't see you. And then just to make sure, the violation is the Pagnon 13 plan has to remove substantial number.
Yes, there are 2 T's there. The second one was the one that didn't copy over correctly.
Understood. I see.
Yes, it should be Pyong 13 and then Rosenwig, I'm bad with pronunciation, 17. Again, my roadmap will be T into analytics about their case. Is everyone ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Since that's the case, we shall begin with substantial T. Definition of substantial, a large part of but not wholly of. Merriam-Webster, substantial, 2018. Substantial being largely part of but not wholly of what is specified. Restrictions means plural. Collins Dictionary, no date, but was accessed in 2018. Forms, plural restrictions, rules that limit what you can do. Violation, the plan does not remove substantial number of restrictions or more than one. The topic mandates that we take a comprehensive approach. Penn 13. The question is not whether or not it's time for immigration reform, but what is the best strategy to carry it out? Should the administration work towards comprehensive immigration reform or take a more piecemeal approach? Though there is no consensus on how to fix the system, all sides of the issue agree that immigration system is in need of deeper forward. Targeted solutions for a specific part of the problem are more likely to lead to productive congressional debate on immigration system rather than attempt to solve the multiple issues that overreaching comprehensive reform measure. Standards, limit without removing a singular statute is unprecedented. There are infinitely many small changes that can be made. The inclusion of the word substantial proves that the topic intends for a broader implementation and solution of the immigration concerns. Infinite small changes to explode the negative research burden and make a new aft per round easy. Real-world education. There are a wide variety of barriers to the immigration system. In order to fully understand the topic, the aft should have to remove multiple barriers. This is key to understanding how the immigration system should work. 4. Topicality is a voter issue of fairness in education and should be evaluated under the framework of competing interpretations, which is the most equitable way to evaluate the round. Reasonability is arbitrary and leads to judge intervention. The only fair way to evaluate this is to look is by looking at the evidence presented. So moving on to the removes T, to take a, so the definition of remove is to take away, dictionary.com, accessed in 2020, to take away. Remove is to take something away, Oxford Dictionary 2020, remove, take something away from the position occupied. Remove means to remove completely, Collins Dictionary 2020. To eliminate something, to remove it completely. Violation. First, it does not remove policy, it is reinstate. Grab the wrong one. First, it is not removing policy, it is reinstating. Second, the removal of the initial policy does not done via statute. The plan does not remove statute. Rosenglow 2017. Of course, the next president could reinstate the wet foot, dry foot policy in the same stroke as the pen as President Obama did to undo it. Standards A limits the remove indicates that they want something gone, not changed. Infinite small change explode the negative research burn and make a new app per round easy. Real world education. There's a wide variety of barriers of immigration in order to fully understand the topic. The app should have to remove multiple barriers. This is key to understanding how the immigration system works. 4, topicality is a voter issue, and fairness in education should be evaluated on the framework of competing interpretations, which is the most equitable way to evaluate the round. Reasonability is arbitrary and leads to judge intervention. The only way to evaluate this is by looking at the evidence presented. So let's jump to their case, and particularly we're going to look at their Prengo 2018 card. The card that the immigration system in the status code has been and will forever be against the exclusion of trans folks. The system is rigged, that card. So their card is talking about how Roxana Hernandez Rodriguez, I apologize for my pronunciation. I am bad at it. It is something I'm working on. Died in ICE detention facility. And I agree, that is a horrible thing. However, if you read into their card, their autopsy were done with were indicative of deep bruising and blows or kicks. Nowhere in this card does it specifically specify that that was due to her being a trans folk. If you look further in the card where she says where she quotes something that I'm not going to repeat because of trigger warnings, that if you look before the highlighting, it's talking about what they face in their country of origin, not what they were facing inside of the actual ICE detention facility. And I will admit, what happened to Roxana is horrendous and does need reform. However, they are manipulating this card in a way to make it seem more deceptive than it is. There does need to be change with the ICE detention facilities, so something like this doesn't happen again. But it is not exclusively because she is because they were a transgender individual. Now, okay, the other part that I must talk about with their case is it is extra topical. They're basically just saying they are an effective advocate for transgender rage, a politic to refuse of the exclusion, and can provide some way for a cultural stigma of non-normative subjects. They do not outline what to do in general, unfortunately. What they are doing is great. I will agree. We need to reform our system to be more inclusive of transgender individuals. However, their plan does not have that. It's closer to a K, saying that we need to do this, not that we saying that we need to do this, not really giving a plan. Now if they got up here saying, all right, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to improve the training of ICE individuals. We're going to allow, basically, if they outline a plan, I would get up here and concede the round because they are correct. We do need to do this. However, they need to outline a plan. We can have idle chatter over and over again saying that we need to do something, or we can actually take action. That is why you should vote a neg ballot. My opponent is on the great, perfect track. They just need to go further. Again, to summarize, my opponent's plan is great, while extra topical because it doesn't solve anything. You should vote neg because they are, one, really not topical because they don't make substantial changes. They don't remove anything. They don't really remove anything. They're just kind of reforming the policy to be more inclusive of transgender individuals. And it's extra topical because they don't really specify what they're doing. For those reasons, I urge you, Judge, to vote a neg ballot. Thank you.
For sure. So sorry, my camera wasn't turning on.
You're good.
All right, is anyone not ready for Cossacks? Dope. Then let's get into it. 3 minutes starting now. So first and foremost, I want to start on the first T, right? The substantial T. Can you explain the context or like?
So
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you cut out slightly.
No,
So
go ahead.
substantial means a large part, but not wholly of. So I'm using that in terms of with remove substantial restrictions. So to remove more than one restriction. So for example, with H-2B visas, which is what I run on AF, I remove the lottery system and the exemption on and the ability for them to not apply for green cards. That is an example of substantial restrictions.
I see. All right. Excuse me. And then remind me of that violation again.
For the first or second T.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry. For the substantial T.
For the substantial T, the violation is pretty much that you're only really removing well, in a way you're extra topical, so you're just basically saying that we need to remove something. But if we were to take your plan at face value, we're just removing a singular restriction, not more than one.
What restriction would that be?
It would be, I'm going to say that your restriction would probably be about how transgender individuals are treated worse in these ICE detention facilities, which is a restriction for them to actually get into this country.
Is that a policy for ICE that specifically trans individuals are to be treated worse than others? No, right. It's a social understanding and it's a social mindset. So if I'm not doing any restriction, why do I have to have a substantial restriction or a substantial reduction in restrictions?
Because the plan, the text of the actual document of the actual entire topic is the United States federal government should implement. I'm pulling this up because I don't have it committed to memory yet.
The United States federal government should substantially reduce restrictions on legal immigration.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you have to remove some substantial restriction. Just changing the mindset of the United States citizens is not changing a statutory restriction.
Sorry, I'm typing that down so I remember. Cool. Let's move to the removes T. So go ahead and, if you wouldn't mind explaining the interpretation to me.
The second T?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a little disorganized on
you're
this
totally
document.
good.
So the removes is basically to take something away. The violation is I grabbed the wrong one. It says that you're not removing a policy, you're just reinstating it. And the removal of the initial policy is not done via statute. This really doesn't fit. I grabbed the wrong violation for this. The violation that I should have grabbed is talking about.
No, it's totally good. Is that the violation we're going for context of this round though?
Because I read it, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. So my last question is gonna be, can you define extra topical for me, please?
Something that takes the topic and goes beyond what is generally considered. For example, like I said with my H-2B visas, it can technically be argued extra topical because I go into the nitty-gritty on the Maryland crabbing industry, for example, in it. That is something that is very fine-tuned and focused and just hyper-specific.
Sure. Judge, are you okay with flex prep? Sorry.
Flex prep, as in we continue to ask questions during prep?
Right.
If
not, it's okay.
I don't believe it's an option. No one's ever asked me that, so I don't think so.
Okay, no, it's totally fine. Well, in that case, I have 4 minutes prep. I will let you know when I'm good.
Sounds good.
Starting now. All right, I am good. I have to like. There we go. Downloads.
Alrighty, what do you have left for your prep time?
Oh, I'm done. No prep left.
Okay, that's what I had too. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
So-
for sure. Yeah, we are both out. Hello? Sorry, I'm struggling to like. Okay, there we go. And then when we are round 3. All right. So to give a little bit of a roadmap, a little bit of an explanation, we're going to be covering the 2 T's in the order of T substantial and then T remove. Before those, though, there's going to be a critique of framework. Honestly, I think that can be like its own separate page, but I'm not going to tell you how to flow. But it's going to apply to both of the framework arguments. Then we'll move on to case. I'll give an overview and then move on to the line by line.
Okie doke, just give me 1 second. I'm waiting for my document to open. Oh, actually, and as I say it, it's open, so I'm good to go whenever both competitors are.
For sure. And then obviously I'm going to signpost as clearly and as eloquently as we go along. Cool. There we go. All right. Is anyone not ready? Then let's get into it. 6 minutes starting now. First off, I want to start with a critique of the framework. This, again, is going to be cross-applied to both T substantial and T remove. So first, the purpose of framework is to place limits on what we should and shouldn't read. Another attempt at control from cis-normative structures. The mere act of, quote-unquote, allowing us to read affirmatives that do not turn up positions of power is an assertion of the power to the oppressor. When we started the activity that is debate, we were indoctrinated to follow the most traditional rules of debate, regardless of whether or not we could keep up with the activity. This mass policing reinforces the punishment queer and trans people experience every day, and the educational net benefit only applies to those whose fairness in the debate space was guaranteed. I do want to take a moment to offer another analysis on the point to say that this is not like accusing the negative team of like supporting anti-queerness or supporting that system as much as it is to say we should challenge the norm that is framework, because it again places these unreasonable and arbitrary expectations on these people to like read the appropriate and correct way of debating. But second, their model of power gives them a state power. It leads to sustained oppression, ensures the co-option of all movements. Cut that card. Fluid as an analytic. Whenever we look to critical movements, anytime that they try to engage the state, it only leads to more violence and like decreased accessibility and decreased effectiveness. But third, thus the alternative to this framework is to vote after reject these norms and models of debate that re-entrench us into positions of disenfranchisement. But let's move on to T substantial. When we meet, their evidence is in context of legal restrictions, and we don't engage with those. Thus, we technically aren't violating the restriction if we're not engaging in that legal process. 2, counterinterpretation, the app should have a conversation start for the process of removing legal demonstrations. 3, we meet Stanley 11 again, which is the refiguration of gender card, says that the 1AC has to occur and is the starter before forms of legal intervention can occur. 4, prefer interpretation A, and this is going to be the biggest thing on this flow. They misread and miscontextualized their violation. They literally aren't sure how we're violating this, and they shows this especially in the 1NC, but also in the cross-examination period. And they're going to try to say like AF doesn't reduce any restriction, but that isn't how it's contextualized in the 1NC and in the cross-examination period. Hold them to a high threshold for that, because I can't, like 6 minutes to 3 minutes, I can't just magically flip. Next, reasons to prefer. I do want to make a note that this is going to cross-apply to both flows, so however you have to go about doing that. A, real-world education, by not limiting what we can and cannot read, and by opening up the debate space for non-material solutions, will provide a necessary education to those who will grow and become people like the lawmakers, the activists, etc. Educating about governmental action specifically and policy implementation limits education and actually harms us as debaters and as individuals. But also, B, queer stories. If absolutely nothing else, view the 1AC and the importance that it carries in terms of opening up the space to hear the stories of of queer folks within the debate space. C, and this is going to be one of the major things, is race to the bottom. Competing interpretation focuses debates specifically onto topicality, which detracts from actual real-world discussions and research about implications of the immigration system. Also, the evidence that they copied and pasted literally said against the Health 1AC. This isn't contextualized to this 1AC at all, and they know that. Also, if nothing else, default to reasonability. They said reasonability is arbitrary and leads to judge intervention, but also, again, if you buy, what it boils down to, if you buy that we're reasonably in the topic, then you vote for us. On removes T, one, we meet, we're not reinstating a policy. Stryker says that Rages merely creates conversations for material change that posits a new understanding and reimagining of gender. Second, counterinterpretation. App has the burden of challenging and attempting to remove some type of social restriction or understanding. 3, we meet, we challenge social norms in the debate space and the US. Cross-apply all of our counter standards again, above, which was real-world education, queer stories, and race to the bottom. Also, they literally said in cross-examination they had the wrong violation. It's a no-brainer. If nothing else, again, default to reasonability. Also, they say reasonability is arbitrary and yada, 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 but don't give any impact or any reason as to why that's inherently bad. Obviously judge intervention isn't great, but they don't say arbitrary or reasonability is bad because X happens and leads to a bad debate space, leads to a bad framing, etc., which means whatever. Cool. Let's move on to case. To re-explain and re-implement the 1AC, the immigration system and the US and the status quo are inherently anti-trans, and the resolution within the debate space requires debaters who support it to uplift that anti-queerness, which is prompting the response of the 1AC. Taking steps to address anti-queerness within the debate space is an a priori issue before any legal changes or governmental actions can happen. This happens again through Rage, in which we embody the violence inflicted upon queer and trans people, and again sweep the legs of a system who relies upon the violence and subjugation of queer folks. There's no offense whatsoever on this 1AC or even on the T flow specifically. So already we can see easy affirmative ballot. But let's move on to the line by line. First, they make a response to the Pringle 18 evidence, which is the immigration system as a whole. They say the autopsy doesn't show that it was because she was trans specifically. One, I want to make sure we all understand that an autopsy doesn't show societal understandings or societal norms. Second, it was the fact that she was trans and they denied her the basic human right of water. And they knew that that was something that she had complications from dehydration from HIV. They literally knew that that was why. And that's, again, that social stigma and the social understanding that trans people are inherently not worthy. Second, if you don't buy, for whatever reason, the story of Roxana Hernandez Rodriguez as a genuine, terrible story as it is, cross-apply the story of Vicky Gutierrez, who was, again, burned at the stake after being denied immigration into the United States. The immigration system and the United States as a whole are inherently exclusive of trans people. They say extra T, no plan. One, cross-apply Stanley 11 that the 1AC is an a priori obligation, but also it's not extra topical. It's in the resolution. If we are consistently bringing up the resolution and taking actions to reject it and engage with it in some form of way, that isn't the definition of extra topical. If you don't buy that, they give no impact as to why extra topicality is bad. Vote off. Thank you.
I'm out of prep time, so I have 6 minutes on the clock for the NR. Ordering will be the substantial T. We're going to talk about their K for the framework / T, and then we're just going to go through some analytics. We are dropping the remove T as they stated. I grabbed the wrong thing.
Okay, I just want to make sure there's no new doc, correct?
No new document.
Okay.
All right. So we'll be starting on page 2 of the 1AR. Is everyone ready?
Yes.
All right. If everyone's ready. All right. If everyone's ready, then we shall begin with T substantial. So my opponent does not meet as in a legal framework, as in a framework, they do not change more than one restriction. Quite frankly, substantial T is what substantial is probably the most important word in the plan text itself, because we have to make a substantial change to our immigration reform system. This also connects to how they're extra topical. They're extra topical because they don't actually outline what they're doing. Now, we're going to quickly jump to their analytics about that. We're going to jump to the 1AR 1AC real quick and talk about their debate is a pragmatic institution thing. That it looks like it's the final card in their 1AC. Judge, we have to look at this in a framework of debate. If we were to sit here and argue that all the merits of debate, of how we have to reject it, I should get up here. I would love to get up here and argue that we should switch to a 15 person per round, 3-minute speech, and multiple pieces of multiple topics per week. However, this is LD, not Congress. We have to focus in on what is actually outlined by the LD rulebook. So we have to the AF has to create a topic that have to create an AF that falls within the topic that we are debating. If we do not follow that, what is the point of debate at that rate? For those as my opponent says, I don't go into the effects of extra T, but if they're extra topical, they're not doing anything. They're not causing any change. There's no point to do the AF if they're doing no change. Societal change is not a statutory restriction. It is not a change to U.S. immigration law. If the emotions of the people were law, this country would be a lot better, I'll tell you that much. But it's not. So my opponent, to not be extra topical, has to outline what their plan is. If they got up here and argued, okay, we're going to improve our immigration system to better accommodate transgender individuals by step A, improving the ICE treatment of them by including more robust training. B, making sure that they are given the most basic of human rights. That is the perfect plan right there. That would fulfill all of my violations. That would make them as topical with this as possible. They would be perfect with it. And I agree. Like I said last time, they have a good plan. This is something that should happen. However, it's extra topical. For that reason, you should vote a neg ballot. Now, moving back to the substantial T, we have to evaluate this in context of a legal restriction because debate looks into the context of a legal restriction. The plan text is the United States federal government should remove I need to pull this up. I'm bad at this. I apologize. Strategize. The United States federal government should implement immigration reform that removes substantial statutory restrictions on legal immigration of the United States. Let's focus in. The United States federal government, okay, that's a law, should implement immigration reform. That's another key topic that removes substantial statutory restrictions on legal immigration. There you go. Those are the key points of this. If we don't look at this in a legal framework, we might as well be sitting here screaming to the heavens, talking about the merits of capitalism versus communism. I say as I've done that before with this debate. Now, so you should still evaluate this in a legal context because that's how debate goes. Now, the AF should have a conversation starter does not mean you are exempt from being substantial. Yes, we should do the talk about gender. We should refigurize what our idea of what gender in society is. However, that should be the stepping stone. This should be your inherency right before your plan. You should go, what you read, and then a plan text of what you're going to do to fix it. All right. So our interpretation of substantial is basically saying you need to change two things with at least two things, and they have to not be a major piecemeal thing. You're going to prefer that our real world education because it's actually dealing with immigration reform and not just the concept of gender. We came here to learn and debate about immigration. We didn't come here to talk about gender. Now, my opponents with the queer story and race to the bottom, they don't really apply here because they're important, but they're not important to immigration, I have to say. So jumping quickly to their K for the framework, as I spoke much longer, the purpose of their framework is a stepping stone. They should read this framework and jump into a plan. Basically, we have to debate legislative power because that's how immigration is done. If we were debating the complete change of societal norms, I love their plan. I would love to take it, and I would use it if that was the case. However, we have to deal with the rules of debate. We have to talk about this in a legal framework, and we have to have actual concrete plans in place to be able to debate. For that reason, you need to vote a neg ballot, as they are extra topical.
Awesome. Okay, is anyone not ready? Cool. So the order is going to be T substantial and then case with some poetics at the end. Cool. And again, I'll signpost as I go along. All right. 3 minutes starting now. Ooh, actually, wait. Sorry. Okay, 3 minutes starting now. Starting off on the T flow, literally a lot's happening, right? So really the only argument that goes extended past the 1 and C is the interpretation, right? Which is again, the Merriam-Webster 18 and the Collins Dictionary no date. I want to cross-apply a few things. First, cross-apply, again, my argument that they miscontextualize their interpretation and the violation. Second, again, they are continuously redefining debate to like legal processes and completely changing how this interpretation functions in this debate specifically. But third, at this point, with the amount of like contextualizations and explanations, there is no clear expectation of the 1AC or of affirmative teams, and there's also no clear violation story at this point. But if you don't buy that, let's move to the conceded counterinterpretation and we meet. The counterinterpretation, again, in case you forgot, is that the affirmative should be a conversation starter for the process of legal changes and substantial reductions of legal processes. And again, I extended we meet with the Stanley 11, a refiguration of gender is necessary card that says that the 1AC has to occur and is a starter before forms of legal intervention can occur. Again, we're going to look to the conceded prefer our interpretation, which was 1, real world education, and 3, race to the bottom, that inherently prove their interpretation and how they function framework as inherently bad. Also, they keep bringing up like FX or extra T. 1. The biggest thing about this argument is, again, at this point in the debate, they have offered no impact to extra topicality or to say why it is inherently bad. They say like, we'll drop out of debate. Okay, there's no like impact to that. There's no impact to the extra topicality argument, nor was it in the T shell to begin with. So there's no reason to vote for it because there's no interpretation for extra topicality specifically, nor is there a violation of how we are. But also, they keep bringing up education. You are learning about the implications that the immigration system has towards queer and transgender individuals. Whether you value that or not doesn't matter, but that is the education, again, the conceded real world education that we are offering. That's how that functions. On the case, the only thing that they make is this brand new argument against the Chamber's Lesson 13 evidence in the debate space card. They say that the merits of debate, it's outlined by the rule book, and then bring up extra topicality again. Again, there's no impact to extra topicality. 2, even if it was extra T, it doesn't mean that the AF doesn't do anything. Also, like, it's contextualized to the point to where we give an alternative. We give a plan. At the end of the day, there's zero offense on the 1AC. There's zero offense coming out of the T flow because of the conceded competing interpretations. And also going back to T, I'm so sorry, they conceded default to reasonability. So again, if you buy that we are reasonably topical and engage with the resolution, then you can vote for us and read with us. No offense on the 1AC, no reason to vote negative, no impacts from the negative team, vote AF.
Alrighty, good job, y'all. Just give me a few minutes to type up my ballot, and then I'll read off to you and give you my decision.
Thank you.
Yeah, good round.
Good round.
Alrighty, y'all. Are both of you there? Okay, cool. So again, or I haven't said this. Congrats on being here. Congrats on debating at the end of the year. I know it's been super crazy, right? Weird world. Hopefully we're in person next year, but kudos for toughing it out and still being here debating in April. So I'll just read to you how I voted. And if you have any questions, let me know. I'm super open to talk about it. So I vote AF based mostly on the idea that the AF beats back the T and that the neg didn't do enough to take out the solvency of the affirmative. On the substantial T specifically, I'm able to vote comfortably on the counterinterpretation from the affirmative because the negation fails to beat their reasons to prefer it and fails to weigh their reasons to prefer the original interpretation from the 1NC. The neg claims that their real world education is more tangible because of the ways in which the affirmative allows us to learn about how the immigration system hurts people who identify as LGBTQIA. Sorry, I said that neg claims. The AF claims that. And specifically people who identify as trans. The neg doesn't do enough for me in this instance, highlighting the specific forms of education we're missing out on by focusing this. And even if they did, why it should be preferred over learning about the trans immigration harms that the AF lays out. The neg doesn't do enough also to take out the solvency of the AF. All I'm really getting is this idea that maybe what happened to one of the individuals named in the evidence wasn't due to them being trans, but the AF had a good response to that. And the AF also extends the experience of another individual that the neg failed to respond to. Lastly, I think the AF does enough in pointing out the neg doesn't do enough on extra T, both in explaining what it is and in explaining why it matters. So that's what I have. Do either of y'all have any questions? Okay, well, good round, y'all, and good luck going forward in the tournament.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thank you for judging, and good luck in the rest of your rounds today.